Okay kids, here we go. This is going to be our first video of how to build an acoustic steel string guitar. So the first thing we need to do is make a mold, and I'm going to show you how to do that. First thing, find a guitar that you like the shape of, whether it's like a dreadnought or a triple O or a double O or a Guild F30 or a Taylor guitar, anything that you like that's a neat shape to you. Find it and have access to it. Maybe you have a friend, maybe you have one of your own that you like. Maybe you know somebody at the guitar store and they'll let you bring in a piece of craft paper, just brown paper, to put down on the floor, and you can just draw around the shape of the guitar that you like. However you need to do it, get a nice outline of the guitar that you want to build. Now I'm going to show you then how to take that information and make your mold with it, and this is considered an outside mold. When we bend our sides, we're going to clamp that in, and we're going to clamp our blocks in with our outside mold. So when you go to trace a guitar, there are a few things you should write down when you're making your tracing on the piece of paper you're tracing onto. You want to get the depth of the guitar at the end block. In other words, how deep the guitar is at the end block. You want to get how deep the guitar is at the neck block. So measure, if you've got a guitar, you're going to measure the from the top to the back. That's your depth of the guitar. So you want to get the depth of the guitar at both ends. You want to mark from the top of the body to where the sound hole is, and know how far down the sound hole sits from the top of the body, and then find out what the diameter of the sound hole is. Whatever that is, write that down on the piece of paper. Also, then you want to get the scale length while you're at it. Measure the scale length, and generally speaking, for a steel string American-made acoustics these days, there's going to be two scale lengths. The 24/9 and the 25/4 are the common expressions for those scale lengths. So take a measurement, see which one it is. If it's a smaller body, it's probably 24/9. If it's a dreadnought, it's going to be 25/4. Some of the triple O's and different things have jumped between the two. So get all the information off of the body that you want to build, all the measurements and everything. Get all the information you can off of it, and then we'll start from there. Alrighty kids, so let me explain this. When you're making your tracing, so you're going to take your paper, you're going to put the guitar on it, you're going to take a good sharp pencil or ink pen, and then do a nice job of keeping the same distance when you're tracing onto your paper. In other words, don't let your pencil go out one way or the other, but really try and get it tight, and do a nice tracing onto your paper. Then I'm going to do this in a dark pen so you can see this. So I need you to measure from that top line down to the top of your sound hole. In this case, that's right at 4 inches. So then you're going to come here, and you're going to come down your 4 inches and make a mark, and then that's going to be your sound hole. That's where it goes, 4 inches from there. Then you want to measure across your sound hole to get the diameter of the sound hole. And again, this is just about 4 inches. So you'll need to get a compass. This sort of thing, and set it up so that you're doing your 4-inch hole, or whatever that hole is. They're all over the place. So do that, and you've got your drawing. Then when you're then I want you to measure here at the neck, and then write that on here. You know, that's your your depth at the neck. So that's your depth at that point. And then you also have to do that at the butt end. At the other end, you're going to measure that and see what your depth is there. And then you're going to write that figure down here, whatever that is. So you've got your depth, you've got your outline, you know where your hole is supposed to go, and then the other thing you have to do is measure your scale length, and that's going to be from the fingerboard side of the nut, not the headstock side, but the fingerboard side. Start there and measure to the middle of the saddle, and write that number down. And at this point, you don't need to be super critical. There's only 2 scale lengths we're going to be talking about for all of this, and almost everything you look at these days is going to fall into one of those 2 scale lengths. There are others, and obviously there's exceptions to all these rules, but for general purposes, like you just want to measure that, and if it's over 25 inches, it's going to be a 25.4. If it's under 25 inches, it's going to be a 24.9 scale length. But from this edge of the nut to the center of, roughly the center of your saddle, saddle's the white piece in the bridge, measure that, write that down. So in this case, this is 25.4 is what that's going to be. So you've got your scale length, you've got your depth of your body, you got the outline of the body, you've got your where your hole is, and the depth of the body at both ends. Then that's the information you need when you're making the tracing. You know, the headstock you know that you can design later if you want to, and you like the design of the headstock you're working on. Lay that down if you can some way, and try and make a good clean tracing of it as well around that headstock. We'll talk about neck dimensions at a later point. But if you have one at this point that you like, you could start taking some some measurements off of that. One good way to, if you have a guitar and you like everything about it and you want to start thinking about the neck dimensions, you can get one of these. They're used for doing molding and trim in houses, and you can set that on there, and it'll make a perfect profile of your neck. Now you want to do that at different frets and mark it, like this would be at the first fret, it would look like, at the first fret it would look like that, and then draw that some way, and then at the 7th fret it's going to look a little bit different like that. So you can get your profile of the back of your neck with a device like this. So again, but that's something that can come later. You can find a lot of different necks to fit whatever your body is, and I'm not too concerned about that right now, but at a later date you might want to copy some profiles that you like. But otherwise, this is the main information, is to trace your body, find where the sound hole goes, get the depth at both ends between the top and the back, and find your scale length. If you wanted to do if you wanted to take a depth at the waist, you could do that. I don't worry about that too much, and we'll talk about how to get that done when we're actually profiling the back, and we'll talk about that later. But if you wanted to write that dimension down, you could do that. Again, I don't worry about that too much. I let the guitar flow as it wants to. And again, that'll all become apparent later on. So those are the critical things you need for laying out your guitar to build the mold. Here's an example. I don't know if you can see this. I cut it apart here just now, but That's a 37 Gibson L1, and it was a guitar that I had in for repair, and I loved the shape of it, so I traced it onto this piece of paper, put all the vital statistics on there. Once you get your tracing, find your center point, and then take your center point and draw a line and then cut that off, because what you're going to do is all you need is half of the body shape, and you're going to put that on your material that you're going to make your mold out of. Here's a half of that particular body shape mold, and all you need is just anything inexpensive. Particle board works fine, plywood, pine boards, inexpensive pine boards, whatever you've got laying around. After having made a lot of molds, I realized that the kind of the ideal thickness is anywhere from 2 3/4 inch to about 3 inches. So if you had a 3/4 inch board, you'd need 4 pieces to make 3 inches. Each piece is 3/4, 2 of them's 1.5 inches. 2 more is going to be your 3 inches for your thickness. I didn't have a single board in the shop to show this, but this will work. Pretend this is a 2 foot by 1 foot board. So that's all you need to make each side out of, even if it's a big dreadnought. 2 foot long, 12 inches wide by your 3/4 inch stock. Then you're going to take your cutout from your template that you drew off of your guitar you want, and you're going to put it on there, and you're going to cut that out. You're going to take a pencil, and you're going to trace around that and draw that onto there. Then you're going to take that drawing. You only need to draw this once, because you're going to then take this to your bandsaw. You're going to cut that first one out of your 3/4 inch stock. Then you're going to use that cutout to make your template for the other, 4? There can be 8 pieces like that. So you're going to need eight pieces of whatever it is, 3/4 inch thick, 2 foot by 1 foot. So that's how you get your layout. Here's going to be what your form's going to look like when you finally get all your pieces together. And once they're together, now when you're cutting it out on your bandsaw, really take your time and try and stay on the line as close as you can, so that when you screw these all together to get your 3 inch thick, the closer you are to your lines, the less work you're going to have to do afterwards to sand this and make it smooth. So you're going to ultimately build that up to where that matches your cutout template, your drawing that you took off of the guitar you like. So once you have all your pieces, again, you can glue those and screw them together, and they're going to be fine. Now, I take mine over to my oscillating spindle sander. There's my oscillating spindle sander. Again, this isn't a particularly expensive tool. You can buy them for $150 or $175, something like that. I don't use it a lot for building, but it comes in handy. There's a few things I'll show you. We'll dig this out again and use it in the build. But anyway, this thing goes up and down as it spins, and it's great for smoothing all these sides. And if you have your pencil mark on your mold, you can watch that as you're coming in, and you're sanding that, and then you end up with a nice smooth surface on the inside. So you get the guitar that you like, you draw the body out, get all the measurements, all the dimensions, where the hole is, all that, the scale length of that particular guitar. Draw it out on a piece of paper, cut out the piece of paper, put it onto your boards you need for your mold, cut that out on your bandsaw, then screw those together and glue them if you like, and then sand this inside. You could also do this on a drill press with a drum sander to smooth those sides. You could do it by hand, just so you get a nice smooth surface on that, is what you want to do. Remember, when you're cutting this out from your pattern, you you just cut that first one and then use it to cut the number you need. They're all the same. Doesn't matter if it's on the left side or the right side. If they're the same, they'll all work together. Then you can take your two halves, like so, and put those together, and that's going to then build your mold. Let me turn that around that way. So there's your two halves. They come together. Now to attach these, I use a flat piece of wood and put it on like so and drill into there and attach it. This is best because you want to be able to put a clamp on this to clamp in your end blocks. So, you know, you see all sorts of, you know, ratchet type clamps and different kinds of things that people use. They're not very good because you can't use that to glue your blocks in with. And I use my form to keep my blocks in place, and to keep my sides in place. They're going to be clamped in when I'm gluing my blocks in. So put a flat piece of wood, of plywood, on here to screw those two sides together, both on, you know, on the back and on the front here, on the top and the butt side of this thing. And then I mark mine so that I always know they go back in the same place. I don't know where that is. This is probably something like, there you go. You can see my marks, so that this goes back the same each time. I also just make a determination of which side I want to call my top and back, and I mark it as my top. That way when I'm bending, I know that I'm bending to the top and the back as a reference. Also, this is again a lot of trial and error, but it's a good way to cut the outside of the mold. Is you want to have, let's see if we can see this here. So here's your mold. See how I have these sides straight and this side straight across here, straight. There's a straight here and then a straight here, and that's so that when you're clamping, you can get in here and clamp. If you do that the same shape as the body, your clamps will slide. It's hard to hold it, but you can put some blocks in the side if that's the way you want to do it. But I like putting these flat sides at strategic points, and then you can see, then you've got a good clamping area. This one in particular is a real short side, but it's good because you're clamping this area. Here you've got a flat and you're clamping this side. And then again, you're going to have your blocks in here. So think about making flats on your, and if you can kind of look at what this does, just try and mimic that on the back side of your mold. So you've got flat sides to clamp to, flat blocks to clamp to. So there's your full mold that's going to look something like that. Now some of you might be wondering what all these slices in the side here are, and I did that. I've done that for years, where I let me do this. Okay, I came up with this idea with these slots to put my spool clamps in. So now when I would put once I bit my sides and got it all glued together, the sides are going to be in there, and then I would undo all this and stick that through and tighten it down. It's a great way to glue your top and back and sides together with these spool clamps. But I've quit using them because it's time consuming. And I find these days that if I just use my cam clamps with some cawls, I can do every bit as nice a job gluing my top and back on as I do with these spool clamps, although I love the spool clamps. Again, these are, you can get these at StuMac, and Luthiers Mercantile makes them. They're great to have around for repair work and that sort of thing. But I do not use them anymore to glue my back and top onto the sides, but we'll see that as we get into the video. The last thing I want to say about this is I want to show you a couple last little features on my molds. One is I found that when I would glue or bend my sides here and glue my block in, this was always hard to make a nice smooth area for gluing to. So I cut that out and got a piece of 1/2-inch ply, and I put that right in there. Now when I come around with my sides being bent, I've got a great place where I can, a good flat surface to glue that important joint, which is where your sides are gluing to your block. Same thing on the other end as well. I have a block just like that down here. So I've got good flat surfaces that allow me to get a good glue pressure from my block to my sides. Now the one last thing that I want to show you, and this is one last thing I want to show you, and this is important. I take a piece of angle iron and I put a little cutout right here into my form that this angle iron will fit into. And then I just put some spacer wood on there and tape it on. I don't care about that. But when we build, we're going to build a mortise and tenon into our block, our neck block. This is an example. And this fits right into there. So now, and I've put the same slot in to this flat block. Now I put my key, I call that a key, into my form. Now when I bring my neck block in to glue it, this centers that neck block. So I don't have, and again, this is the voice of experience. I've glued these in before and they've been clear in the wrong place, one way or the other, not quite in the center. So I came up with this device. It's just a simple little angle iron with some wood spacers on it, some tape, and then when I put this on there, it centers that exactly on my center line. And as we get into the build, I'm going to tell you how I build these blocks, and we're going to do a bolt-on neck with a mortise and tenon. So this is a neat aspect of this, and that's basically your mold. 2 3/4 to 3 inches thick. Put in some flat areas at both blocks for gluing. Put flat boards on the ends to hold them together, so when you glue, and put a key in there, and that's your mold. Okay, so I hope that all made sense. So again, here's the mold. It's all screwed back together with the blocks on the ends, and it's all one piece. Now you're going to take this apart. We are, as we bend our sides and put them in there, and then I'll show you how we can put it all back together and get our blocks glued in. Matter of fact, I bend my sides and glue my blocks in all at the same time, and I can have my sides bent and my blocks glued in easily in an hour. It doesn't take that much time. So I like these kinds of molds, the outside molds. Build your own. I hope this is explanatory. I can't go into kind of every detail, but I hope there's enough information. You get the idea of how to construct this thing. I've told you how deep it needs to be, and you'll see why that is later. Don't build it as thick as as for example the end block on your guitar is. That's going to be too thick, because when you go to glue the neck block, you're going to have to put spacers in there because it's thinner than that, and that gets to be tricky. So this is a really good depth on these things. So there you go. Use your imagination and figure it out, what I forgot to tell you. So good luck. Make your mold. That's the first thing you're going to have to do. So there we go. Okay, kids, if you like and use or find these videos interesting, educational, informative, or maybe just entertaining because you're up late at night, we'd love to have you support us. There's a few ways you can do that. One is click the subscribe button below. That helps YouTube know what we're doing and that we're serious about this. Also, you can hit that bell icon, which tells you when the next videos are coming out. We're gonna try and get at least one out a week now that we're up and running here. Also, a good way to support us is become a patron over at our Patreon account. And again, there's a link below for that. Patreon's a cool way that you can sign up and give, you know, $5 a month or $10 or whatever you feel is worth it. If you're using these videos to actually build a guitar and find it interesting and fun, please support us through Patreon. That's you know, I wish I could do this completely for free, but it takes money and time away from my other regular job. So, you know, it's a big undertaking, and any support you could send this way is great. So, you know, it's all been very fun so far for me, and I hope you guys are having fun at this as well, and we greatly appreciate all your support, so thanks.